Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going deep on something I think we can all relate to at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Debt.
Ugh.
And we'll be looking at how one person, George, navigated his way out of a pretty tough debt situation.
Debt is definitely something so many people struggle with.
Yeah.
And it can be super overwhelming.
For sure.
But George's story is a great example of,
Yeah.
there's always hope and the right strategies can really turn things around.
Totally. To unpack all of this, we're using this really interesting video advertisement from a Hong Kong law firm.
Okay.
It's called Tse Tang Solicitors, YTT for short.
Okay.
And they use George's experience to kind of like showcase how this thing called a debt relief plan works.
Okay.
The DRP. Think of it as like a financial life raft, this structured way to get back on solid ground when you're kind of like drowning in debt.
Makes sense.
And the video does a really good job of taking this complex legal process and making it understandable by walking us through like the key benefits. And it all starts by setting the scene with George's situation.
Okay.
Which is unfortunately pretty relatable for a lot of folks.
Yeah, for sure.
So the video introduces us to George, and he's a warehouse assistant.
Okay.
Making 17,000 Hong Kong dollars a month. And he's single, but he's facing a pretty daunting 240,000 Hong Kong dollars of debt.
Whoa.
Yeah, spread across 3 different creditors.
Oh, wow.
So there's HSBC for a credit card,
Okay.
Standard Chartered Bank for a personal loan,
Uh-huh.
and then Bank of China for another personal loan.
Oh, okay. A lot of different places.
Yeah, and just hearing those numbers, I can already feel the stress.
Yeah, I bet.
Right.
And the video really drives that home by highlighting that his minimum monthly payments on all that debt were adding up to like 15,500 Hong Kong dollars.
Oh, wow.
Which is almost his entire salary.
Jeez.
It's like a textbook example of how debt can just spiral out of control and make you feel trapped.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so George is clearly in a really tough spot. He turns to YTT for help, and they come up with this custom debt relief plan for him.
Okay.
And the video jumps right into the first step, which is debt consolidation. So can you explain what exactly that means?
Yeah, so debt consolidation is basically like taking all of those different debts, with their different interest rates and due dates and everything, and you bundle them together into one new loan.
Gotcha.
So it's a way to simplify everything.
Makes sense.
Make it easier to track.
Like
and oftentimes you can actually secure a lower overall interest rate.
So it's like taking a jumbled mess of chords and like organizing them into this nice, neat cable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
it makes it much more manageable.
So then the next part of this DRP is where things get really interesting, negotiating with the creditors. And I think for a lot of people, the thought of negotiating with these big institutions could be pretty intimidating.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are some of the strategies that YTT likely use to help George secure that significant 68% reduction in his monthly payments?
Well, that's where their expertise really comes into play.
Okay.
So they probably started by like really analyzing George's financial situation.
Yeah.
Figuring out where there might be some potential savings.
Okay.
And then they presented that information like a compelling case to the creditors, showing that he's committed to repayment, highlighting any like special circumstances that might have contributed to his debt, and then proposing this revised payment plan that's realistic for George, but still acceptable to the creditors. It's a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
And that's really where having that skilled solicitor makes a huge difference.
68% reduction, though. That's life-changing for George.
Oh, absolutely. It frees up so much breathing room in his budget.
Right.
So instead of worrying constantly about making ends meet, he can allocate money to other essential things, maybe even start saving.
Yeah.
It really reduces that mental and emotional burden of debt.
For sure.
So he can focus on other things in his life.
Yeah, totally. The video also mentioned something called an extended repayment term.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
So an extended repayment term basically means you're spreading out that loan over a longer period of time, which lowers the monthly payments.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like choosing a 30-year mortgage instead of a 15-year mortgage. Your monthly payments will be lower, but you might end up paying a bit more in interest overall. So it's all about finding that balance between affordability and the overall cost.
So it's about tailoring the plan to each person's specific situation.
Exactly.
Now, there's also this term that's mentioned, asset protection.
Right.
Which I think sounds important, but might be confusing for some people.
Yeah.
What are some common concerns that people have about their assets when they're dealing with debt, and how does a DRP help address those?
That's a great question. A lot of people worry that if they can't repay their bets, creditors might try to take their stuff. You know, things like their car or their savings, or even their home in some cases. A DRP can actually help with this by working with those creditors to protect those assets while you're repaying your debt under the plan. So it gives you peace of mind knowing that you're not going to lose the essentials while you're working towards getting back on track.
Now, I thought the YTT video did something really clever to kind of drive this point home.
What's that?
They used this animated graph.
Oh, yeah.
To show the dramatic drop in George's monthly payments before and after the DRP.
Right.
It's like visually watching this huge weight being lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, it's a great way to illustrate the impact of that.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're not a financial expert, you can see that steep decline in payments.
Totally.
And you get it.
And the video also emphasizes all the positive outcomes for George.
Right.
Like he avoids bankruptcy, maintains a good credit rating.
It's super important.
Which is crucial for all sorts of future financial things.
For sure.
But most importantly, he regains control of his financial life.
That's really the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
It's going from feeling totally overwhelmed and powerless to being back in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
It's a journey. And a DRP can be a really helpful tool.
Okay, so our listeners out there, what does all of this mean for them?
Well, even if your debt isn't as high as George's, I think his story really highlights the importance of reaching out for help if you're struggling. You know, a good solicitor can help you understand your options, help you negotiate, and create a plan that really works for your situation.
And remember, there's no shame in asking for help.
Absolutely not.
In fact, it's a really powerful step towards taking control.
Exactly. And as we saw with George, even when things feel really tough, there's always a path forward.
So as you reflect on George's journey, I want you to think about this.
Okay.
If you were in his shoes, what questions would you ask a solicitor before jumping into a DRP? What factors would be most important to you?
That's a great question for everyone to consider.
Yeah, and remember, knowledge is power. So the more you know about your options, the better equipped you'll be to deal with whatever financial challenges come your way.
Absolutely.
Good. We hope you found this deep dive helpful and maybe even a little inspiring. Until next time, take care.